So what we will try is that we will remove this model. We got the curency repository, so it's local. It's just hard-copied data at the moment, but that doesn't matter. Now we will try to move it so it's a service, so we use a service instead of a model that's inside this solution. We could make it in the same project. If you make a project and you make an MVC project, when you make the project you can mark if you want MVC structure, or you want web API structure, or you just want an empty one, if you're, and also if you want web form, of course. But the WCF can live on a server, so if you make an empty one, it's more difficult, because then you need the structure for the rest if you want to make web API the same. But in this case, I think I will make a special project for it, so we actually separate it. And then of course we also could maybe change, if we knew that somewhere we can find this information, actually we might take the web page and make some jumping around with the XML and then get the currency directly from that, or we might find somewhere else where we can actually get the information, so we don't need to maintain it ourselves. Then we can use our services to make a layer in between the other system and our system. So if the other system changed, we don't need to change all the UI stuff, we only need to change the connection with the services. And then of course there is the scalability as well. We can put it on a separate server. So let's make a new project, and so let's call it web application, maybe VCF, curency, web application. I still call it web application because it's services, but it's still a web application all over. An empty one, smallest one we can have. And maybe to do it a little bit easy, we could make a folder for the model, or we could just put the model directly. If we have a lot of classes, a lot of stuff, then it will probably be a good idea making folders. And if we make folders, we will also have normally automatically, when we make a class, put it in a folder, it will have a new namespace. But in this case, we just put it directly. So we need a class, and we could use the same name we already have used. So it's called curency. So I spell it correctly. New class. Like this. Add. Then I need to put something into it, and so I got the other one. So I probably can steal from here. I steal a little bit too much, but so this one could be done. Now it's really difficult. I got two projects, the same. That's just like when you have these controllers and the view, it's called index, and you got a lot of index, which one is which. But so I need to be clear in my mind. So I got this one, and then I don't want this one, this one, and this one. Don't need this one, and this one. But I need to make this, it should be transport object, so it should be built. I might use the same internal as for transport, so I don't need to make a new object every time. But I need to make a data contract and data member of every property field I want to send. So let's do that. Data. And if I spell it correctly, will probably say that I need some kind of using. Haven't I spelled it correctly? Generate classes. Well, maybe it's not included, so we take a small step, because we might need an extra DLL, and if we are making a VCF service, it will probably fix it, so we don't need to do it manually. So it might be a good idea making the VCF service in the first instead of making the bottom. So let's make a, so I need the correct project. This would be the one. And add a new VCF service, and maybe we should call it curency service. Some of you have actually just called it service 1, and then you try to rename it. It's a problem sometimes, because if you rename it, you might still miss something where it's actually just in text. It says so. It's better just then delete the one and create a new one. Yes, yours? No, because the service contract will be for the services. This is actually data, so I need a data contract for this one. Yeah, but I can see. I think I have spelled it correctly. So the problem, I could find it in the slides because there is a using. But if I try to make the using, I probably will not be able to that, because the DLL is not a part of the project still. But I think if I make this one, I will actually get more DLL put in the library. So let's try to do this one. So now we got the service contract, and let's go back and see if it helps a little bit. Potential. So now you can see it's actually when I made the first one, it actually made a reference to a new DLL. If I go to all the DLLs in references, I can see that now it can find the one system runtime serialization, and that might be the one that I actually needed. So you can see you find, in this case, data contract. Yeah, so now it's okay. I could do it manually, but if I start, normally probably I will start also with the services, and then I figure out what I need for a model. So then I need data members for this one, and data members for this one, and this one. I skipped the text. I could actually have made a data member for that one. Then it will be passed as an extra property, so it will be created on the server, but probably that will be maybe just as easy generated on the client side, and I can give you a tip for that, how we can put extra information on it. So it will be better, in that way it will be better doing it on the client side. The client will in this case be the MVC, which is the web server of the user. So now we got an object. Then we also need some way to have a data store for the information. So and in this case, I can have here a curency repository I could put it directly in the service, but maybe it would be a good idea make some kind of currency repository where I put all the data in, and then I can figure out how I can maybe end up not building it every time. But in the first place, it doesn't matter. So I made this one. So a new class. And repository. And I already have all the code. So the only thing I need to do is copy the code. So this one to this one. Sometimes it's better actually having two versions of Visual Studio open. So which one is the right one at the moment? Then you can see we got this problem because it's not in a subdirectory. That can be changed in two ways. It can be changed by we are doing that we change it here. We can just say that this is models and it's changed. Then we don't need to change the other part. And we could actually also in the repository, we could do the same. Like here we can say, okay, it's also part of the models. And then even if we don't have a folder, then it will still work the same. Then we can probably steal a little bit more code because some of the code we don't need to change. Oh yeah, not here, because the namespace. So now they are in a sub-namespace called models. So now I better close all the windows because else I end up mixing the two. They're totally the same name, so if I change one of them, it might be the wrong. I could also make this as a startup project, maybe. Then I can easily test it. Startup project. So we are ready. What do we need for this one? The services. The services might need nearly the same as we have in the repository. So if I already have made all the code in a class like this repository, it's actually easy making the interface because it's just passing all the stuff, all the work to the other class and getting the result. So it's actually just like an adapter, simple adapter that passes the information between the two. So, and if I want to make a web API, I could do the same. So the web API will be really thin controller because all the code will be in another class. So let's go and have a look at the interface and open the repository and see what we have there. So the interface, I need some kind of having a get currency list, something like that. So maybe this could be directly used, so it's the same name. So if I go to the interface, this one, I will remove that one, don't need that one. So I will have this one instead. Simple. Then, of course, if we take it step by step, then we can take the next one. So this do work will not be in anymore. And I can also get a little help. So implement interface. Well, it's working. It can compile, but it will give me an exception. So I need to put something in it, and what should I do? I could make a new repository. I know that I'm creating new instance every time, but I could make a new repository. So it's called models. Actually, I can steal a little bit because I've done that in the MVC. Actually, it was exactly the same. But anyway, we do it here. It's so quickly. Currency. So this is my currency repository. New currency repository. And then return cr.get currency list. That's it. Finish. So let's try it. See if we can start the VCF test client automatically. Remember, sometimes it's better actually try to open the SVC file in the browser in the first place, because you will get a little bit more about if it's possible to do it. If you have compiler errors, you will see them a little bit more clear in that one. So we can do that in a second. So we can, but now it seems to work. So let's try to just invoke it. There are no parameters, so it's simple. Invoke, and we got all the information back as XML. So, and seems to be working. So we could actually try one more, where we just make this one, stop it here, and then do it again. Invoke. So we can see that we actually have the object, the 8, and all the elements. So it's working. So that's the first part. It could be an idea, just take this one. If you build it, of course you will discover basic error, but if you have problem with the web config file and so on, you will not discover, because it will first, when it's actually running, the last part will be compiled. So what you normally can do is saying browse with your own browser, and then you can see if you get this page. If you get this page, then okay, then it can create the VSTL document, and to create the VSTL document, then it also need to have passed the services. And then if you want to see the VSTL document, you can see it here. It's describing all the stuff that we need to have to generate automatically service classes, proxy classes, and also data transfer objects according to when we have parameters in and return values of object out. So first part is done. Next part, we got one more method. We got one for getting a list. We got also one to get a specific object, and we already also have a method here for that. So maybe we can take the same signature. Seems to be okay. So we take this one and go to the interface, and so this should be the signature, and then of course it should be accessible from the client. So we need to say it's an operation contract, so it can make the VSTL document describing how it's to be used, and there will also be a service that we can actually call. So now we got this one, and we need to implement it. It can help a little bit. So we try to get a little bit. Not quite well. I haven't saved it. Maybe sometimes we should save it. Well, it will not help me this time. Why? Yeah. No, it will not. Is it still running? No. Okay, then we will do it manually. No big problem, because we know the signature, and so this is the signature. and what we need is a repository, so we generate a new one. Not a good idea if we're thinking about performance, but anyway, and then we return the repository method get curency and pass the ISO 40. This should be it, yes. So let's try. So we got this one, DKK, Bjørk, and it's returning a null. So let's just try to have a look inside this one. We might have spelled it incorrectly, but let's try to see. Try to call it again. Bjørk. So the ISO is, well, yeah. Can you see the problem? I actually have the quotes inside the key also, so the key is not what I thought it was. So I shouldn't do that. So we try it again. So I thought I should put it in quote, but I shouldn't. So let's try again. So now the ISO is DKK, so it should give us an element back. So we got this element back. So now we are actually done. So now we can change the MVC solution to use this one instead of using the coded one in the MVC solution. So it should use the WCF solution instead. And then we can maybe talk about this is a bad solution because we don't save the information. We need to save the information, but that's another part. So let's go back to the web application, and maybe we should change this to be a startup project as well. So I go to the controller. I don't remove it, but I could remove this one. Then I would realize where I use it, and then I can just change, but I think I can manage to do it without. So we need to figure out where we actually have the curency repository used. We have this one, so we can take this one and make a comment, and this one as well, because what we needed was the list. So we changed it a little bit. So now we need the list, the curency list, but we will have it from the service instead. So we will have to get accessible for that, and for that we need to make a service reference. An easy way is adding here, adding service reference. And if it's inside the solution, we don't need to know the else. We actually could just start up with a browser and see what is the URL address for the VSW document, but it can find it ourselves. And actually, even it's not saying that, it's actually like making a question mark, and WSDL is actually the document that it's read. So we got the services, and then we can call it curency service, and maybe we could just go to advanced and see, should we use an array, should we use a list? It seems like we use the list before. So if we have any places where we don't say var but we say list, then it could be probably better changing to a generic list, because then it will be the same that we have defined in the first place. So async, not interesting. It's a web server, so if we wait for this one, we cannot post back to the client. So then we might also make a lot of problem with that. Of course, there might be some way that you sometimes use tasks to make a balance, because then you can use the CPU a little bit better. But in this case, it's okay. We only use the synchronized way, because we need to be sure that we have information to make the view. We cannot make the view without having this information. So yeah. So else I will put this on. I can also just remove this one. Then I only have a reduced codes, and I will not be confused having something asynchronously. So let's say okay for that one. Then it builds all the objects. So if I go to the service reference now, like this, and double click, I can actually see what's generated. So I got the currency object with this one. It's actually a class. I got the currency service client, and I got the currency service. I missed one thing, because I have one problem. Because when I make this one, you will see that in this one there is no text property, and I need a text property in one of my solutions. So in that case, we need to make a little bit trick. So we will do that. We know if we go to this class, which we should not change, this is code generated, we will see that one interesting thing, it's a partial class. So a partial class can be placed in separate files. And we know also the namespace. So this is the namespace of this one. So if I make a new class, and I will do that, in this case I could put it in the model, add new class. Currency. Maybe I should see BCF, because then you know it's from the BCF currency extension. And then I change this one to this namespace, and then I write public partial. Then it's building on the same class. So now I'm actually putting extra code on the same class. So it's serialized into the class, no problem. It has the right structure, but I also have more code on the class. So what I need to is, if I go to the currency here, I would really like this one. I still got a problem that says that this might not be the solution, because if I want to make an application where I make new currency or change the currency, I definitely want those arguments on the element as well, and that doesn't solve the problem, because I can't put extra information on a property that should be just on top of it. So in that case, I need to make a new object and put all the information into this one. But for this case, it could be done. And then you have seen that also. So I just add extra information. So partial class. Well, of course, it should be the same class name. I forgot that. So we should find the class. was it? Oh yes, it's just called currency, of course. Yes. And now I could have another problem, but not a really problem, because the currency, the one currency is placed in a namespace called model, and the other one is another namespace. But I can have the problem that I cannot remember when I have the same classes different places. But in this case, no problem. So I go to the extension, and of course should be called currency. So even if the file is called extension, the class still is this name. So now it's done. And then I can now make a service. So I need the services. That's called currency service dot, and then I need the client, service client. This, and this is actually instead of this one, and then this one is coming from the client. Get currency list. And it's a type conversion error. Yeah, of course, this is not the right class, because it's from the other namespace. So it's from this namespace. So currency is services, and I could put up the full namespace, but instead of models, it's from this one. Again, so now I got this one. I can steal a little bit. This one I can steal, because when we came back, we tried to get the currency again. So we got the repository, and then we tried to get two elements from the repository. So that should be changed also to be from the services. So this should be changed, coming out, and replaced by this one. So now we got the client, and then we should use, just copy this too, and comment out. So instead it's the client, the proxy. We're using get currency. We don't like it. Have we got the same get currency? Let's just try to see what we have. Get currency, this one should be correct. Yes, nearly, but we got one problem. One more problem is that the class we are putting it into is not the same as on the right side, because we haven't changed the class. So we need one more change, because on this side here it's from the proxy server, so it's actually called currency service dot, and this definition is not like that. So we will go to this one. You can see we got a problem, because, oh, not here, this one, of course. We got the problem this is from the old model, but the object we try to put into it is from the new one. So we could just change it here. So let's do that. So it's currency service instead. So this is here. So it's from this one, and it is from this one. And then of course we should do it here as well. See if that should be done. It's complaining a bit. Oh yeah, we don't have a constructor. But this was also just to prevent that we actually did something wrong. So we actually don't need them. But as we got a problem, and we have the same here, so we need to change from one class with the same structure to another one. Sometimes that's actually an argument that you actually make a mapper, so you create a new object with the old structure, and you just copy all the information to a new structure. Then you don't have this problem. But we just changed the name, that's the only thing. We changed the name to the new class. So now we can try it. Well, this should not be, shouldn't, so yeah. So let's try, this should be saved, and try to build it. Seems to be okay. And then we got the view we want to start up. So this is the view. So you can see we are actually calling the services now, but don't care about that. See if it's work. So now it's not from the local repository, it's actually from the other one. And if I really want to be sure, I could just remove the original currency class. I don't need that anymore. And I could also remove the original repository class. I don't need that anymore. And if I did that, I could have a using sentence instead that take the new model, so I don't need to all the specific changes. Then I just have a new using sentence. So you can see it's actually, if you have a solution, you can actually just take part of it and remove it. The logic, where you have all the stuff, if you remove it and put it on a service, then you would actually make a smaller application for the web part. So the only thing that could be done now easily to change stuff, might be a good idea having a short talk about, is at the moment, oh, can I get rid of this? Yes, it's running, that's wrong. Okay. At the service, at the moment, I create a new repository every time. That's a little bit expensive. I could, of course, go to the repository and just make this as a static list and this as a static constructor, so it will only be done once. Then, of course, I could have problem if I changed it, because it will be shared by multiple users. But if I don't change it, then I don't have problem with logging. The other way I could do it is going to the service class, and then the easy way is actually making a property kept in a session or application where I have the services. And or making a static. And the really simple one will just be take this one, move it here, and make it static. So then I can remove this one and this one. Oh yeah, a little too inside the class, of course. So yeah, so now it's static. Now it's only done once, but it would probably be better making it as a property, because then I can change it easily to be in session or application or static as I want to. Yeah. Yes, that's it. In the same way, now we've got the services, we could make a lot of more, of course, where we make creation of new currency objects, but that will be an extension of the MVC solution as well. It's not really difficult. We just make a creation and pass it to this one. We need, of course, some extra services, and if we are making it a new one where we can add new elements, then of course we should be aware of, we have a list, we add new element and we read elements, then we should have some kind of logging. So we should put in log. If we are having objects and we look for objects and we can change object, then we got a little bit more problem, because is it acceptable that we are changing object even if we are logging on different properties? Of course, if we are not logging on a property like a double, and it might be maybe more than bits than we can actually do in one machine instruction, then we are really in problem. But if we log on each property when we read it and set it, we still got the problem that if we are changing one property and another one, and we are reading them in between, then we got mixed up data. So in that case, we actually also might need to make a copy of the data while we are logging it, make a copy, and then go ahead with the copy. And of course, if we have more than one user that can change the same data, we might also have some kind of version control, optimistic offline log, where we can actually see that when you are trying to update object, that is still not being changed while we are doing something else. So that could be put in the model as well, but we cannot manage to do that. But you probably have seen one of the main stuff. I'll close this and put it on front as well.